All right, let's dive right into this explainer and crack open a prehistoric cold case that completely rewrites human history. We usually think of our human family tree as this neat straight line, like we started in Africa, migrated out, and boom, conquered the globe. But what if I told you that story is actually missing a massive, highly advanced chapter? Today, we're opening the file on a wild investigative mystery. We're tracking down an entirely lost human species that didn't just survive alongside us. In a lot of ways, they completely outclassed us. So the inciting incident of our mystery actually starts incredibly small. Picture this. It's 2008, deep in the remote mountains of Siberia, and archaeologists are excavating the Denisova cave. They're sifting through the dirt, and they find a tiny, muddy fragment of a pinky bone. At first glance, not exactly earth-shattering. The initial assumption at the scene was, okay, this is just a standard 400-year-old Neanderthal bone. So they cataloged it, brushed it off, and sent it to the lab for what they figured would be a totally routine analysis. Well, those routine DNA tests came back, and they sent an absolute shockwave through the scientific community. The results showed this bone wasn't 400 years old. It was a staggering 50,000 years old. And even more mind-blowing, the genetic signature didn't match a Neanderthal. Actually, scratch that, it didn't match us, Homo sapiens, either. It belonged to a young girl from a completely unknown third species of human that had literally been erased from our history books. And since she was found in the Denisova cave, they officially named this new species the Denisovans. Looking at the Denisovan timeline here, you can see how our established human family tree just gets completely shattered. We've got the Denisovan girl living in Siberia 50,000 years ago, the pinky bone discovered in 2008, and then by 2010, this brand new species is officially revealed to the world. And as we'll see with that astonishing 50,000-year-old bone needle discovered in 2016, they weren't just surviving, they were inventing. Suddenly, the neat and tidy story of human evolution got incredibly complicated. Now, this brings us to a massive forensic breakthrough. The Denisovans aren't entirely gone. These highly advanced people actually interbred with our ancestors. Today, their genetics live on. They left up to a 5% genetic footprint in modern populations across places like Tibet, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. That's a huge spread. This wide genetic distribution proves the Denisovan empire stretched all across the Asian continent. We're talking about a sprawling, highly successful civilization. So here is the ultimate missing persons angle of our investigation. If they essentially ruled prehistoric Asia and left their DNA in millions of people living right now, where are all of the bodies? Think about it. With Neanderthals, we've dug up countless skeletons and skulls all over the world. We know exactly what a Neanderthal looks like. But when it comes to the Denisovans, we have a massive, glaring hole in the physical record. Let's review the complete physical evidence profile. Aside from that initial pinky bone in Siberia, what do we have? We've got a few isolated teeth, a single jawbone found way up in the mountains of Tibet, and one partial skull in China. And that is literally it. The physical bodies of this mighty, continent-spanning empire have essentially vanished into thin air. It is without a doubt one of the most baffling cold cases in modern archaeology. Moving into Section 1. Profiling a superior species. To really understand what we're dealing with here, we need to look at the victim profile. Who exactly were these people? Well, the genetic data extracted from those tiny fragments paints a picture of stunning biological superiority. These weren't your stereotypical primitive cavemen. In a lot of ways, they were biologically upgraded compared to us. For starters, Denisovans possessed a skull cavity that could accommodate a brain up to 20% larger than ours. 20%! But, it's not just about size. Their genetics reveal unique neural pathways designed to control brain development in a totally different way. This points to highly advanced memory and a capacity to grasp complex, sophisticated concepts far better than the average Homo sapien walking around back then. Now, just compare our own physical limitations to their altitude survival skills. A normal human starts to seriously struggle for oxygen around 10,000 feet. But the Denisovans, they absolutely thrived in freezing high-altitude mountain ranges. They carried a unique genetic adaptation called the EPAS1 gene, allowing their bodies to easily extract oxygen from incredibly thin air at 14,000 feet. In fact, modern Tibetan populations inherited this exact gene from their Denisovan ancestors, which is exactly why they can live so comfortably at the literal roof of the world today. And those physical upgrades didn't stop at altitude survival. Their genetics also gifted them a supreme immune system. While early Homo sapiens were constantly falling victim to new deadly ancient pathogens, the Denisovans had this powerful biological shield. They could basically walk freely through disease-ridden environments, completely untouched. They were, quite simply, an apex human species. Which brings us to Section 2, evidence that defies time. Biological advantages are one thing, sure, but it's the impossible physical artifacts they left behind that truly turn this whole investigation upside down. The tools and objects found in Denisovan territories completely defy our accepted timeline of human technological progress. Just look at this impossible bracelet manufacturing process. In the Denisova cave, researchers found fragments of stunning stone bracelets, carbon dated to between 50,000 and 70,000 years ago. But the real shocker isn't the jewelry itself, it's how it was made. These things feature perfectly smooth, precisely drilled circular holes. The level of delicate, high-speed friction required to do that strongly suggests the use of mechanical drills. We're talking about technology that wouldn't be seen again by modern humans for thousands of years. This technological leap is so severe that it leaves researchers completely baffled. As one expert on Denisovan artifacts perfectly put it, discovering this level of manufacturing precision in the Stone Age is, quote, like finding a new iPhone in ancient Egyptian pyramids, end quote. It just shouldn't be there, based on everything we supposedly know about history. And the evidence just keeps piling up. In 2016, they discovered a perfectly crafted 7-centimeter bone needle, tailored 50,000 years ago, complete with a carved hole for thread. Think about that for a second. While our Homo sapien ancestors were basically wrapping themselves in raw, untailored animal skins just to survive the winter, the Denisovans were taking measurements, threading needles, and wearing custom-tailored clothing. Now, if tiny needles and delicate bracelets don't convince you, let's scale things up. 3,000 tons. That is the staggering weight of individual megalithic stone blocks discovered deep in the dense, remote Siberian forests at a place called Mount Shoria. Located right in the heart of Denisovan territory, these Mount Shoria megaliths are something else entirely. They feature precisely cut edges with staggering exactness. Some of these blocks are so insanely heavy that even our best modern industrial cranes would struggle to lift them. Yet whoever built this site not only moved them, but stacked them and aligned them perfectly with the stars and the sun's path to mark the longest day of the year. These astronomical, precision-cut megaliths demand an understanding of engineering and astronomy that primitive humans just absolutely did not have. All right, Section 3, Unsolved Prehistoric Extinction. This brings us to the real investigative climax of our explainer. We've got a species with larger brains, superior immune systems, high-altitude adaptations, and mind-boggling technology. So, what on earth could possibly wipe out a civilization this advanced? How did they end up as just a handful of bone fragments buried in the dirt? Looking at the suspects and the victims, the first theory actually points the finger directly at us. It's the theory of a prehistoric massacre. See, as our ancestors, Homo sapiens, flooded into Eurasia, they ran into the Denisovans. Now, we know they interbred, sure, but history shows that when two species occupy the same territory, usually only one survives. Homo sapiens were numerous, highly aggressive, and possessed a deeply warlike nature. So we may have violently annihilated the physically superior but vastly outnumbered Denisovans, effectively erasing them from the map. But hold on, because there is a second, even more terrifying suspect for their disappearance, one that requires no human intervention at all. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth experienced a massive, sudden global cataclysm known to science as the Younger Dryas event. The geological record of this Younger Dryas destruction literally reads like the end of the world. We're talking evidence of cosmic impacts causing fire to rain from the sky, followed by sudden extreme temperature spikes. This caused the rapid melting of global ice sheets, triggering apocalyptic flooding across the continents, an event so traumatic it's often linked to the origins of the Noah's Ark flood myth. This complete reset of the world could have easily buried the great mountain-dwelling Denisovan civilization under millions of tons of mud and water overnight. So, as we prepare to close this case file, we're forced to ask, did a violent prehistoric war or a fiery global cataclysm erase the Denisovans from existence? We are left staring at two equally brutal ends for a civilization that was centuries, maybe millennia ahead of its time. And honestly, the total lack of fossils makes it incredibly difficult to say for sure who or what pulled the trigger. But here is what you should really take away from this explainer. Knowing a highly advanced human species was entirely wiped from the Earth Does our own history need a complete rewrite? Our human story is so much more complex and potentially far more fragile than we ever dared to imagine. We weren't the only intelligent civilization to walk this earth. The Denisovans were here, they were brilliant, and then they just vanished. If an empire that advanced can be completely wiped from the face of the planet, leaving behind basically just a single pinky bone, it forces us to ask, what other lost chapters of our history are still buried in the dirt, just waiting to be found?